When I opened my eyes in the med bay aboard the human vessel Athena, the first thing I noticed was his face. Rugged yet gentle, with a warmth in his blue eyes I'd never seen in any species before, especially not in these unfamiliar bipeds called humans. I had no idea then how Lieutenant Connor Jensen, this human soldier, would end up altering my life in ways I never could have predicted, especially after everyone else had written me off. But I'm jumping ahead. Let me begin at the start. I'm Aferra, and I served as a scout for the Deloney Defense Forces on the tiny, dusty mining outpost of Pyros 5. Our job was to guard the valuable mineral sites from raiders and competing factions. But honestly, for someone my age, it was a dull assignment out in the middle of nowhere. That changed when the krill arrived. The krill were a ruthless insectoid species, all jagged angles and an icy, relentless malice. They attacked without warning, swarming over the outpost defenses and slaughtering anyone in their path. I watched in horror as they tore apart my squad mates, ripping through armor and flesh with their razor-sharp talons. Frozen with fear, I barely managed to grab my rifle and take cover behind some mining equipment. My hands shook as I fired wildly into the mass of swarming bodies. Each shot seemed to only enrage them further. I knew it was hopeless. There were too many and I was just one scared soldier about to meet a gruesome end. A talon slashed across my abdomen and I collapsed. Bright green blood pouring from the wound. As my vision began to fade, I thought I glimpsed strange craft descending from the sky, spewing fire at the krill. Then everything went black. I thought that was the end. Just another forgotten casualty in an uncaring galaxy. But fate, it seems, had other plans. I woke up with a start, instinctively reaching for my wound, only to find it wrapped in strange white dressings. As I blinked against the harsh lighting, my eyes took in my unfamiliar surroundings: gray metal walls, beeping machines with blinking lights. Over me leaned a creature I'd never seen before. "Easy there," it said in a deep yet soothing voice. "You're safe now. I'm Lieutenant Jensen, but you can call me Connor. You're aboard the UTS Athena." I tried to speak, but my mouth was as dry as sand. Connor handed me a tiny cylindrical container. "Here, take this, and sip it slowly." The cool liquid eased my aching throat as I drank tiny amounts. After a moment, I managed to croak out, "Where am I? What's going on?" Connor explained calmly, "We picked up your distress signal and arrived to find the krill swarming your outpost. Sadly, there weren't many survivors, but we did manage to rescue you and a few others before dealing with the bugs." Survivors. My team. A wave of sorrow swept over me as I recalled their tragic ends. Yet, somehow, I had been spared, saved by these odd creatures. "Rest," Connor whispered gently, his hand settling lightly on my shoulder. The gentle touch oddly soothing my pain. "You're still recovering from your wounds. The Athena boasts some of the finest medical facilities in the galaxy. We'll have you up and moving soon." I had countless questions, but fatigue suddenly overtook me. I gave a small nod before drifting back into a dreamless sleep, comforted by the strange sense of safety I felt from this alien soldier who exuded calm and kindness. Over the following days, I stayed in the medical bay, gradually rebuilding my strength. The human doctors treated my wound with advanced technology beyond anything I'd ever encountered: dermal regenerators, cellular enhancers, nanoshooters. To my people, a wound like mine would have meant certain death or, at best, lifelong disfigurement. However, these humans claimed I'd be combat ready once more in just a few weeks. I also found out more about my rescuers aboard the ship where I now lived. The Athena was a United Tarrant vessel, part of the peacekeeping and humanitarian fleet of the Galactic Concordance. Her crew was mainly human, a relatively new species making its mark in the galaxy. But it was Lieutenant Connor Jensen who I interacted with most during my recovery. He visited every day, sometimes bringing food, always checking first to ensure it was safe for Delonial physiology, and took the time to teach me about human culture. On other occasions, he would just sit quietly with me, listening patiently as I struggled to explain my home world, my family, my hopes, and my fears. I came to realize that, like me, Connor was a soldier, part of the Concordance Marines. He talked about his missions with a blend of pride and sadness, recounting the lives he and his fellow Marines had saved while mourning those they couldn't reach in time. Those losses weighed on him, a burden he seemed unable to shed. I once asked him, "Why do you do it? Why put yourselves in danger for strangers? For aliens you've never even met? Definitely not for fame or wealth." Connor took a long pause before answering. "I guess it's just part of who we are. Humans, I suppose, realized long ago here on Earth, after much pain and loss, that we're all in this together, that we're stronger when we stand united." He shrugged. "Out here in the black, where all we have is each other, there's too much darkness, too much cruelty. We have to be the light, even if it sometimes burns us. We have to keep trying." This feels so strange compared to the pragmatic, often ruthless ways of my own people. Risking your life for someone you don't know seemed reckless, a sign of weakness. But I wouldn't be here now if it weren't for that very vulnerability. As days turned into weeks, I became stronger, and Connor and I grew closer. He recounted stories of Earth, its towering mountains, endless oceans, and velvet night skies. In return, I told him about Kez, my home moon with its steaming jungles and violet sunsets. We discussed family, duty, and purpose. When he talked about his daughter, Eliza, waiting for him back on the Mars colony, his eyes would light up with hope. He once told me it's for her and kids like her that we do what we do out here, to make the galaxy a little safer, a bit brighter, so that maybe someday they could find real peace. Peace wasn't a state I was very familiar with. Life was about struggle, conflict, and competition. The strong survived, the weak fell away. That was just how it was. But the more time I spent with this human, the more I started to think maybe there could be another path. As my wounds healed, I was finally permitted to leave the med bay, always staying close under Connor's watchful gaze. He took me on a tour of the enormous ship, showing me the hydroponic gardens where fresh food was cultivated, the observation deck with its sweeping views of the stars, and the training rooms where crew members sparred and practiced. I was struck by the ease of camaraderie among the humans, the laughter and casual touches that contrasted sharply with the stiff formality and distance of the Deloney military units. I also crossed paths with more members of the Concordance while aboard. A tall, Valkyrie engineer. An Eriscan navigator with shimmering silver eyes. 2 Oro Sapien medics. All of them were treated with equal respect and camaraderie by the human crew, despite how different we all were. We were still connected by a shared purpose. But doubt lingered in my mind. What was my role now? My squad was gone. My assignment was wiped out. Once I fully recovered, where would I turn? What path lay ahead? Could I truly go back to Kez? Fight again for a government caught in an endless war? For a society that ignores the weak and shattered? I voiced these doubts to Connor one evening, we sitting together in the garden. The smell of strange flowers drifted through the recycled air. I admitted to feeling adrift, gazing at my hands, still marked by faint scars from the attack. Unsure of my path. "You've all saved me, healed me, shown me kindness I can't quite grasp yet. How do I even begin to repay it? How should I proceed?" Connor was quiet for a while, deep in thought before speaking. At last, he took my hand, his skin warm and comforting. "You realize there are still hundreds on Pyros 5, hurting from the krill attack, wounded, displaced, with resources ripped apart. They need our help." I stared at him, taken aback. "You're heading down there? Even after what happened?" He nodded, determined. "The Athena might be a warship, but her main purpose has always been humanitarian. We go wherever we're needed." He squeezed my hand. "And right now, I believe you're needed too." I looked at him, uncertain. Me? What could I possibly bring to the table? Just a broken soldier. Connor grinned at his general. "You're also a survivor. Someone who understands pain and loss. Someone with an innate understanding of their world in ways others might not see. You have talents and strength beyond what you realize. Come along with me. Let's work to piece things back into place." I looked into his sincere eyes, noticing the bright conviction shining within. "Trust me, a stranger. An outsider. He had already restored my life, given me another shot. Now he was offering me a reason. An unfamiliar wave of emotion surged inside me. I still didn't quite grasp these humans, not completely. But I saw this human, this painfully kind man who had saved me, looked after me, and now wished for me to stay by his side as he foolishly faced danger again. How could I possibly say no? I took a deep breath, nodded, and gave his hand a gentle squeeze. "All right," I whispered. "Let's go be the light." And with that, it was settled. A new journey started, one I never could have imagined. The following day, Connor and I joined the away team heading to Pyros 5's surface, prepared to face whatever obstacles lay ahead together. What greeted us was a scene of complete ruin, way worse than I'd envisioned. Broken mining machines, burnt ground where Athena's cannons had wiped out krill swarms, and hastily set up tents packed with the injured and displaced. Not a single building was still standing. I froze for a moment, overwhelmed by the harsh scent of smoke and decay. But Connor was right beside me, steady and determined. "Come on," he said calmly, slinging his med pack over his shoulder and grabbing a crate of supplies. "We've got work to do." We headed straight for the field hospital set up by the Concordance med teams that had gone ahead of us. Rows of cots was tending to a wounded person, a human text bustling around them with dermal regenerators and hyposprays. I spotted a cluster of unattended Deloney survivors huddled in a corner and directed us toward them. Their wary eyes widened as I drew near, taking in my Deloney traits, now layered with the unfamiliar Concordance issue fatigues. "Peace," I said in Delum Standard. "I am a Pharazan, formerly of the 118th Scout Battalion. This human is a medic, we're here to help. Why would the Terrans assist us?" One of them spat, a young male I recognized as a local miner. "They're not our concern. We were hardly more than a dot on their star maps before all this." Others nodded in silent agreement, their expressions lined with hurt and distrust. Before I could say anything, Connor knelt to their height, pulled out his pack, and offered an iridescent vial. A powerful Deloney painkiller. "You're right," he said calmly. The translation device on his collar converted his words flawlessly into Delon Standard. "We're not here out of obligation or politics, we're here because you're hurting and we have the means to ease that hurt. That's all the reason we need." The miner stared at him for a long moment, evaluating. Finally, he reached out to accept the vial and Connor began gently rolling up the miner's shredded sleeve to treat his lacerations. The others watched tensely, some wincing in shared pain, but none shrank away when their turns came. And so it went. We navigated through the survivors, Connor quickly and skillfully tending to their wounds while I translated and offered comforting words. Some we visited in crowded tents, treating illnesses and dehydration caused by poor sanitation. Others we helped with the grim task of carrying their dead, offering quiet words of comfort as they mourned their loss under violet skies. One was rapidly gaining a reputation for their cutting-edge technology, unwavering bravery, and a puzzling habit of helping those in need, even at great personal risk. We organized the delivery of food and supplies from Athena's cargo hold, making sure the rations matched the tastes of the Deloney and felt familiar. Wherever we went, I noticed the initial distrust and resentment in my people's eyes slowly melt away, replaced by cautious gratitude, even a hint of wonder, as they watched Connor and the other humans work tirelessly, expecting nothing in return, no praise or payment. It was a change in outlook, understanding that compassion and unity could be powerful assets on their own. It wasn't always smooth sailing. There were times when frustration or helplessness crept in, overwhelmed by so much tragedy. One morning after a restless night caring for a child's terrible burns, I spotted Connor on the edge of the camp, his head hanging low and shoulders heavy with exhaustion. "Hey," I said gently, moving to stand nearby. "Are you all right?" He looked my way, offering a tentative smile, lost in thought about how we wish we'd arrived earlier, could have done more. I gave a slow nod, feeling the same weight of those thoughts. The Deloney took pride in our tough defenses, yet our outpost had crumbled so fast. How many more lives could we have protected with the Terrans' better weapons? Their unbreakable spirit. But wishing didn't alter anything. "We're pushing ourselves as hard as we can," I reassured him. "You showed me that, and just look at what we've managed to do in only a few days. My people aren't quick to trust, but you've introduced them to a new path. Hope where there was none before." Connor's stance relaxed a little as he absorbed what I said. I suppose you're right, he admitted. Sometimes I just can't shake the feeling of how heavy it all is. Eliza would probably say I'm being too tough on myself again. She seems wise, you're Eliza. I nudged playfully. You really ought to pay more attention to her. You little troublemaker, he replied with a laugh, bumping his shoulder into mine. That simple touch gave me a little thrill. These moments with Connor, the relaxed joking and the gentle physical closeness, felt more authentic than anything I'd ever experienced. As natural as breath. We fell into a peaceful silence for a while, watching the Pyros and the twin moons slowly edge toward the horizon. Behind us, the soft murmur of the waking camp carried on. At last, Connor faced me squarely, his face twisting into an unreadable expression. What will you do once our work here is finished? He asked softly. Have you thought about it? I paused, a faint flicker of doubt swirling in my stomach. Honestly, I'd been avoiding that very question. The Athena and her crew had started to feel like home. Connor, on the other hand, had become something else altogether. I mumbled, voice trembling with an unloved squeak. Back to Kess, I guess, to give my report to command. But the words felt empty, and the idea of leaving now was almost physically painful. Connor kept looking at me, searching. For a moment that took my breath away, I thought he might reach out, but he just nodded and turned back to the horizon where the first glimpse of sunlight was breaking through. Well, you've more than shown what you're capable of here, he finally said. Show them your resilience, your adaptability, your compassion. He shot me a quick sideways glance. The Athena could really use someone like you, same with the Concordance. If that's something you'd be interested in, I stared back at him, my heart pounding in my chest. Was he really asking me what I thought he was offering me a spot among his crew? A shot at picking up where we left off, not just here but out there in the endless, twisting expanse of space? My mind drifted to my squad, to my past life, what it had been and what it could never become again. Then I thought of Athena, the sense of purpose and brotherhood I discovered there. Of how Connor made me feel challenged, appreciated, truly seen in ways I never had been before. Maybe this wasn't just some assignment, more than duty or responsibility. Maybe it was the start of everything. I inhaled shakily and straightened my shoulders, locking eyes with Connor with a steady, resolute look. Yes, I said firmly, I want that. I want to stay on the Athena with you and the crew. The grin that spread across Connor's face was radiant, almost transformative. An involuntary smile crept onto my own lips, a surge of joy rising from deep inside me. This felt right, like I was exactly where I was meant to be. Fine, Connor said, his voice tinged with genuine excitement. Let's seal the deal. He extended his hand to clasp my shoulder, the contact burning through my uniform layers. Welcome aboard, Aferra, ensign of the Galactic Concordance. The next few days blurred together in a flurry of activity, the demanding work hardly registering anymore. Now I had a future of my own making, one filled with purpose and hope. After wrapping up our relief efforts on Pyros 5, the survivors were safe, and supplies were in place for the long road to rebuilding. I said goodbye to those I'd come to know, promising them that the Athena would stay in touch and they wouldn't be forgotten. Back on the ship, I was given official quarters and started focused training to become part of the crew. Connor naturally assumed a leadership role in my training, instructing me on breaking down customs and protocols, helping me sharpen my translation skills, and pushing me in combat drills once he learned about my scouting expertise. I told him once, exhausted and dripping with sweat after a particularly intense sparring match, never to hold back with me. I may be new to your methods, but I'm no delicate flower. Connor chuckled as he reached down and helped me to my feet. Noted, he said, Riley, I'll keep that in mind next time I hear you cursing my name from the mats. Finding my footing among Athena's eclectic team, I couldn't help but be struck by how effortlessly I was accepted and respected, so different from the stiff hierarchy of the Deloney units. Here, I was appreciated not only for my skills but also for my unique insights and background. Yaris, the Valkyrian engineer, eagerly asked for my ideas on tweaking the ship's shielding to better handle krill plasma blasts. Nara, the Ariscan navigator, patiently explained the complexities of voidfold calculations for warp jumps, intrigued by the Deloney methods I'd picked up. Meanwhile, in the med bay, I exchanged knowledge of Deloney physiology and field medicine with the Aurosapien doctors, absorbing their advanced techniques in return. It was a beautiful mix of cultures and ideas, a harmony that brought out the best in all of us, and throughout it all, Connor was my steadying presence, my mentor, and my fiercest supporter. We settled into a comfortable rhythm, working and training side by side, sharing meals in the galley, and often closing our day by stargazing on the observation deck, swapping stories about our worlds. Sometimes he'd mention his daughter, and the sadness in his voice made my heart feel heavy. He missed her desperately, I could tell. One evening, as a bright nebula floated across the view screen, he said, "She would love you, you know. Eliza's obsessed with other species, always asking me to tell her stories from our missions." He gave me a sly smile, suggesting that meeting her own Deloney warrior would likely make her entire year. I looked down, cheeks warming at the thought. "I'd be grateful to meet her someday," I murmured. "If you believe she wouldn't mind a visit from her father's alien partner," the words slipped nervously, feeling bold and unfamiliar. Connor froze, his eyes widening slightly. "Partner," he repeated quietly. "Is that what we're?" I chased the words with a hard swallow, meeting his gaze. "Isn't it, unless my feelings are one-sided?" That thought made me wish I could curl inward like a dried leaf. "No," Connor murmured, grasping my hand and drawing me nearer. "Never one-sided, never that way." His other hand lifted to brush my cheek, his rough palm surprisingly tender. He pressed his forehead to mine, a deeply intimate gesture. "Aferra, you've become my everything. I never saw this coming, never imagined I'd feel like this again. But you make me want to try, my breath quickening, my heart pounding in my ears." I reached up to brush my fingers wonderingly over the pale stubble along his jaw. "Connor," I whispered, "I want this too. Want you, whatever comes." He made a rough sound, almost a growl, and then his lips were on mine, hot and insistent. I gasped into the kiss, my hands fisting in the front of his uniform, as he hauled me flush against him. The taste of him was intoxicating, addictive. I lost myself to the heat of his mouth, the slide of his tongue against my own. Nothing had ever felt more right. We lost track of time, wrapped up in each other, trading lazy kisses and murmured words of affection. It was only the chirp of Connor's communicator that finally broke us apart, flushed and breathless. "Connor here," he answered, voice still gravely, his arm stayed firmly around my waist. "Lieutenant," reported Captain Haber's dispatch tones. "We've just picked up a distress signal from a civilian vessel near the C-band asteroid field, with possible krill radar activity. I need you to put together a tactical team for an interception and possible rescue operations." Connor and I exchanged a quick look, adrenaline already surging through me. "Understood, Captain," he responded, and since Zen and I will be in the hangar in 10 minutes, Connor signed off. As we scrambled to collect our gear, I felt that fierce grin spread across my face. This was who Connor and I were, guardians, protectors, facing any danger and defying any odds. We would be the beacon in the dark, the hope for those who had none. Always together, as long as the stars shone, and I knew deep down that I'd finally found my true calling, my purpose. With this team, with this incredible person by my side, I felt completely at home.